Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep. We're going to trace the entire journey of medical cannabis, all the way from the seed to the final product you might see on a shelf. And we're going to do it with some serious expertise to guide us, drawing on more than a decade of incredible work by physician Dr. Ricardo Ferreira to find out what truly makes a quality cannabis medicine. So to get started, you really have to appreciate just how complex this plant is. We're not talking about something simple here. The cannabis plant has over 500 identified chemical constituents. As Dr. Ferreira points out, this isn't just a plant, it's basically a complex pharmacy. And believe me, its value goes way, way beyond just THC or CBD. And this quote from Dr. Ferreira really just sets the stage perfectly for everything we're about to talk about. It highlights the main idea for today. Every single step in the production chain is absolutely critical. It's not just one thing, but the sum of all these parts that determines whether a product is going to be effective or not. So, here's the roadmap for our journey today. We'll start by really understanding the plant's chemical potential. Then we'll look at its anatomy, we're going to debunk a huge myth, and then follow the entire process, right from the field into the lab and all the way to that final product. All right, let's jump right into part one, the cannabis pharmacy. The big idea here is that the real therapeutic power of cannabis comes from this incredible symphony of compounds working together, not just one or two star players like THC and CBD. Okay, so the main chemical families you need to know about are these three. First, you have the cannabinoids, which, believe it or not, the plant actually produces as a defense mechanism. Then you have terpenes, and they're what give the plant its very distinct aroma and flavor. And finally, flavonoids, which are responsible for the color. Each one of these plays its own unique part. So we know what these powerful compounds are, but where in the plant are they actually made? Let's get into the anatomy and find out exactly where all the magic happens. The answer is in these things called glandular trichomes. And the best way to think of them is like tiny, microscopic factories covering the plant's surface. This is especially true on the female flowers. Their one and only job is to churn out and store that precious, sticky resin that is absolutely packed with all the good stuff, the cannabinoids and terpenes. But here's the thing, and this is absolutely crucial. Not all trichomes are created equal. The largest ones, the capitate-stalked, which you find on the flowers, they're the superstars, the main source of active compounds. Then you have the smaller ones on the leaves, which have a totally different, much more bitter profile. And the tiny bulbous ones, well, they contribute very little. This difference is a total game changer for product quality. Okay, so what does that mean in the real world? Well, it all comes down to this. If a manufacturer uses only the flowers, which are loaded with those premium trichomes, they get an amazing high-quality product. Yeah, the yield is lower, but the quality is top-notch. Now, if they start mixing in leaves to get a bigger yield, the quality just takes a nosedive. The taste, the therapeutic profile, it's all compromised. All right, let's move on. For part three, we are going to tackle one of the biggest, most persistent myths in the entire world of cannabis. Come on, we've all heard this, right? Sativa gives you a head high. It's for energy and creativity. And Indica gives you that body high, helps you relax, puts you into couch. But is it really that simple? Let's see what the science actually says. And here's where it all gets mixed up. You see, the popular belief is all about the effects, but the original botanical classification, it had absolutely nothing to do with that. Sativa was just the name for the tall, skinny, fibrous hemp plants they grew in Europe, and Indica described the short, bushy, resinous plants from South Asia. The names have just been completely repurposed by culture over time. And look at this. The science just slams the door on this myth. When researchers analyze hundreds and hundreds of samples labeled Sativa and Indica, what do they find? The average levels of THC and CBD are basically identical. There's no significant chemical difference there to back up that old belief. Scientifically speaking, it's a myth, plain and simple. So, if it's not the major cannabinoids, then what is making the difference in the effects? Well, the answer lies in those aromatic compounds we talked about earlier, the terpenes. They are the real chemical drivers behind why different strains feel different. Strains that people call indica tend to have higher concentrations of those earthy, almost sweet-smelling terpenes, like myrcene and linalool. And the strains people call sativa, well, they often have more of the citrusy, spicy, uplifting terpenes, like limonene. It's the unique terpene profile, not the name, that actually shapes the experience. Okay, so now let's rewind a bit and talk about what happens before anything even gets to a lab. We're talking cultivation and harvest. This is where a plant's potential is either unlocked or, honestly, completely lost. The grower's role here is everything. Once the plant is cut down, you might think the hard work is over. No way. These next steps are so important, but they often get overlooked. The plant has to be harvested at exactly the right time, and then it has to be dried slowly with really precise control over temperature and humidity. This isn't just about getting water out, it's about preserving that delicate chemical profile. And here's why that drying process is so critical. Get this. If you dry the plant too fast or use too much heat, you can lose more than 50% of the most volatile terpenes, the very compounds that give a strain its unique effects and character. That is a massive loss of therapeutic potential. Okay, so our plant has been grown with care, it's been harvested and dried perfectly. Now we're following it from the farm right into the laboratory. This is where science takes over, concentrating all those active compounds to create a medicine.
But hold on, before we can extract anything, there's a vital chemical step called decarboxylation. You see, in the raw plant, the cannabinoids are kind of asleep. They're in their acid forms, like THCA and CBDA, which aren't very active. Applying just the right amount of heat activates them, or wakes them up, turning them into the THC and CBD we all know. It's a delicate balance, for sure.
All right, now for the extraction itself. There are a few different ways to do this, and each one comes with its own major pros and cons. You've got your alcoholic method, which is pretty easy but risks pulling in stuff you don't want, like chlorophyll. Then there's supercritical CO2, which is super clean, but it's also very expensive and can actually damage those fragile terpenes. The choice they make here has a huge impact on the final product. And here we are at the final step of the journey. We have this concentrated, raw extract, but it's not a medicine yet. It has to be turned into something that's safe, consistent, and effective for a patient to actually use. Now, this is something you probably don't even think about, the carrier oil. It's the oil they use to dilute the extract, something like MCT oil or olive oil, and it is incredibly important. It affects everything. We're talking about how much of the medicine your body actually absorbs, how long the product lasts on the shelf, getting the dose accurate every single time, and even the final taste. See? Every single detail matters. And that brings our journey full circle, from the specific trichomes on the flower, to the terpene profile, the drying method, the extraction technique, all the way to the final carrier oil it's mixed with. Every single step we've talked about today shapes that final product. So, I'll leave you with this question. Now that you know the whole story, do you really know how your product was made?